What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the SomeWhatSports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined by the two titans of the sports analysis industry, Jurg and Dame. Guys, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. It's been a calm day off of work. That's always a nice thing to experience, and I'm ready for us to break stuff down. Lots happened the last week.
Oh yeah, a lot has happened. But before we get on to that stuff, Dame, how have
I'm not good. I'm not good. Just keep going.
yeah, a little depressing vibes because we're recording after this Yankees game, but we won't get into that. So we have a pretty stacked lineup this week. We'll have an NHL update from ours truly, Jurgen. Then we're going to discuss a certain NBA team signing a certain player and just herb nonsense all the time from this team. But whatever, yeah. And then a massive signing for one of the marquee teams in Major League Baseball. And then we will finish off with a major trade that I would say has shaken up the NFL draft. Would you guys agree?
Oh yeah, two trades really.
Yes. Thank you, Jurgen. Two trades. But yeah, stack lineup. But of course, what we always do, we start off hot, which means we start off with the NHL updates. So, Jurg, my guy, what's going on with the NHL?
We have finally passed the halfway point of the season in the NHL after delays in various points. The Dallas Stars, like I have said a few times over the updates, they started off super late. They're finally, just about there, a few games back of the other teams in their divisions. Everyone is over about the 32, 33 games played fresh mark. A few teams are even more so than that just because of schedules and the various things. But we are officially halfway through the season, and what we are quickly approaching is the April 12th NHL trade deadline. And I'm going to get into that as it stands of this moment. All four divisions are really still up for grabs. No team has been able to separate themselves in the standings, in part because, so many teams have been so talented this season that it's hard to expect like a Florida or a Pittsburgh Penguins team or a Edmonton Oilers team to fall too behind in the standings and stay too behind for so long. It's at various points where these teams will be 8 points back, and after a week they'll only be like 3 points back of first place. That's really how the NHL has been, in part because the season is shortened, but also in part because there have just been great stretches of play by all these various teams. One thing that I want to look out for in terms of the standings is that the fourth seed in every single division is up for grabs. Like it was announced at the beginning of the season, the NHL this year, to try to limit travel as much as possible, they're going to the divisional playoff way, where the top four seeds in every modified division will make the playoffs, and it'll be interdivisional rounds, the first two rounds. So the first seed will face the fourth seed, the second will face the third, and then the winners face each other. And then those four teams will be in the quote unquote, it's not the conference finals, they're calling it the semifinals this year, before they head off to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, the to note, all fourth seeds are up for grabs right now in the Central. Nashville, Chicago, and Columbus are all pretty close, with the Dallas Stars within striking distance because they have a couple games in hand. In the East Division, where the New York Islanders are second place, so one New York team is doing the city proud. They're tied for second. The Philadelphia Flyers are in the fifth seed. They're trailing the Bruins, and sneaking up from behind are the New York Rangers. They have 36 points, and they've played some pretty good hockey recently. In the North Division, our good old friends north of the border, the Toronto Maple Leafs are first, quickly behind our Winnipeg and Edmonton, and then the Montreal Canadiens currently hold fourth. And they have a distinct edge there because behind them are the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks. And while both of those teams are only 4 points behind them in the standings, Montreal has about 5 games in hand because of this week. Now, this is not to say they're going to win all 5 of those games or go 4-1 in those 5 games, but they have the distinct advantage of they're ahead in points right now because of their hot start to the season, and the fact that with those games in hands, it gives them an edge. So I like, as of now, Montreal is probably going to maintain that fourth spot, but we'll see as things go. And then the West Division, I'm starting to believe who the winner, the Stanley Cup champion, may come from the West Division, whether it be the Colorado Avalanche or the Vegas Golden Knights. Those are two of the top 3-4 teams this season. They've been great. The Minnesota Wild have been the biggest surprise in the NHL this season, and the St. Louis Blues are swiftly behind them in the fourth seed, with the likes of Arizona and Los Angeles trailing behind by a few. In terms of the deadline and what I'm expecting, personally, I'm expecting and would love to see certain teams kind of just blow it up. There are a number of clubs that entered the season with expectations and just did not and have not met up to them at this point. The number one team would be the Buffalo Sabres. After trying to build a winning team there the last few years, it just has not worked. I'm expecting Buffalo to completely, for the most part, tear down their roster at the deadline. I think some of their biggest names, like a Rasmus Ristolainen and a Taylor Hall, who they acquired last offseason, are definitely going to be gone. And they could even go a step further if they trade one of their young star defensemen in Rasmus Dahlin, which would be the prime example of, okay, it's a new era is coming, because there were other trade rumors regarding their superstar Jack Eichel. So all of that in tow is just to summarize that Buffalo, expect them to make several moves at the deadline, because it is just no longer working for that current regime, and it's going to be burned to the ground, quote unquote, come the offseason. Other teams that could be making moves, the Nashville Predators could be another one, along with the Anaheim Ducks. Those are two teams that they've played well in various points, and in terms of Arizona, they're not too far behind to the fourth spot, but I just don't see them being able to make a run. And in the case of Arizona, I don't know what move they could make to really better themselves to try to get the fourth seed. I just think St. Louis is better talent-wise, and I think ultimately they're going to fall short. So I think they should just sell off a few pieces, get something back, because Arizona is in a weird place. I'm sure you guys could find comparisons in the NBA where they're close to the cap, but they're not a great team. They're a mediocre at best club, but they're spending so much money. So they need to find a way to maybe sell off a piece or two to, give themselves some more breathing room for future seasons. In terms of buyers that could make some moves, I definitely expect the Boston Bruins to do so. They were at the top of the East early on in the season before recent weeks have seen them fall down due to various things such as injuries, especially to their starter Tuukka Rask. I think Boston could stand to make a move, especially in their defenseman core where they need support. I see them making a move there. Montreal and Toronto are two teams in the North Division I could see making moves. It'll be interesting to see if they make a trade when they get someone, that person's going to have to go through Canada and all those. They're going to have to go through customs and all the extra uh, conditions in place Canada has with dealing with COVID, because there's a reason why the NHL has just a North Division, because of how Canada was going to do it. So that'll be interesting to see. Like I could imagine that they'll trade for a guy and they're probably going to have to wait like almost a week before they play. Potentially, I'm not saying that it will be the case, but
Mhm.
that's likely. And I guess recently a team that could maybe make a move are the Florida Panthers. The reason I mention them is because this is the greatest team on the ice that Florida has ever put on the history of the organization. And they just,
Sheesh.
yeah, legitimately, this is their best team they've had since they last made the Stanley Cup Finals back in 1996. And just a couple of nights ago, they lost one of their key pieces. Their top defenseman, Aaron Ekblad, fractured his leg and is out for the season. Originally, there was some hope that he could have maybe came back late in the playoffs, but it is now confirmed that he's just gone for the year. So with that injury, Florida's blue line, they're already kind of shaky. Ekblad was a big reason why they were good. He's their best offensive defenseman by far in terms of output. And so missing him, I think that injury has potentially forced Florida here to maybe make a move at the deadline because of how good they are. They could stand to make a move, giving up a young player and maybe a pick to get a quality defenseman back. Ironically, Nashville and the Buffalo Sabres, two teams that I say could be selling players, have some good defensemen. So, does the circle get the square there? We're gonna see, but at this point, NHL midseason, very entertaining. All the divisions are up for grabs, and I definitely can't wait to see as things progress how everything is gonna finalize come early May. And then I'm personally expecting and hopeful for an active NHL trade deadline, kind of like what we got with the NBA, with some big notable names getting moved. And I'm just excited for it as we are approaching the final weeks to get to the NHL playoffs.
Nice, nice. I mean, it's always exciting when the playoff season, regardless of any sport, is looming. So,
And especially if in the hockey playoffs, if fans are back for a majority of those teams, Canada would probably be the exception, but like we're seeing teams bring back fans a little bit here more and
mhm.
more. So if a couple of these teams have their fans back, like the NHL playoffs, it'll regain a little bit of that atmosphere that it's known for. Because above anything else, I've always praised this about the NHL. The NHL playoffs are on a whole other level when the crowds are full.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every sport, like when playoffs hit, everyone just goes crazy. But yeah, I'm happy to hear that NHL is thriving in that regard. But yeah, moving on to some NBA news. The Brooklyn Nets have signed LaMarcus Aldridge from the buyout market after the Spurs bought him out. You know what? I'm not going to start this one. Dame, how about you start this one? We haven't heard from you since the beginning of the episode. What are your thoughts on the signing in general? What do you think about it for the Nets? What do you think about like this whole buyout market craze that's kind of going on? Because I know a lot of debates have occurred about you know how this kind of affects teams going forward, and just like it definitely benefits like the marquee Titan teams. So what do you think about all of it?
Bro, you asked me like 8 different questions, so
It's
I'm
not
gonna
my
try to
fault. Your
answer.
analyzation skills suck.
Alright, well, you threw a lot at me, so
You're good.
I'm not saying I'm not gonna answer it, but I'm just saying. All right. Let's start out what it means for the Nets. I thought it was a really good move for the Nets. It's not because LaMarcus Aldridge is some superstar, but they just needed a big body to throw down there and someone on offense that can actually score the ball if you throw it to them. Beforehand, they had Nick Claxton and DeAndre Jordan. Like, you can't throw it to them and tell them to give you a bucket. So obviously they got Blake Griffin, and now adding LaMarcus Aldridge, who I believe is probably can get you a bucket easier than Blake Griffin can, because his mid range shot is still very lethal. Defense, I don't think it helps him at all. Aldridge isn't that great of a defender. Just the reason he helps is because, again, he's just a big body to have, which is good. Um, what I think the buyout market means for the league, I personally, it's been whatever for me the past couple of years, like before these past couple of years, but now, like, I'm kind of not liking it because it is only going towards like 2 or 3 teams at the top. Um, you even see now LaMarcus Aldridge from playoff. Usually, it's like these bottom tier teams that buy out these players because they want to start their young players. But now you have like a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge coming from the Spurs, who are literally in a playoff spot, and they're buying him out because for whatever reason it doesn't fit. So stuff like that I don't like. I kind of get like if you're on an expiring deal like Andre. I'm not saying this because he went to the Lakers, so I'm just making that clear. But just an example, like he's on an expiring deal, and the Cavs are obviously rebuilding, and they want to give more minutes to a guy like Jared Allen. So it makes sense to buy out Drummond, let him go, and have your star center, have your future star center get more minutes. But with the Spurs, like you're literally fighting for a playoff spot, and LaMarcus Aldridge is definitely your second or third best player. So I don't really see the reason to buy him out there. It's not like you're giving young players minutes there because you're actually trying to compete. So it's kind of like both sides of it, but I'm not liking it how it's going so far because it's obviously the Nets and Lakers are the two teams that are benefiting from it the most. Um, as for the Nets, they're just a bunch of scumbags. KD obviously recruited him. LaMarcus Aldridge literally came out and said that KD personally recruited him. So that goes for all you scumbags on Twitter. Were like, how do you know that KD even recruited him? LaMarcus Aldridge literally said that KD personally hit him up and said to come join him. So there's that. That's a bunch of scumbags. KD can't win by himself. How much help do they need? They literally have 3 superstars. Like, what else do you need? You go out and do it. Like, I don't know if I missed any of your questions.
No, you didn't. Yeah, I think you were pretty assertive with your thoughts there. Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't blame the Nets for signing LaMarcus Aldridge. Like, I think any team would do that, no matter how like loaded you are. They're just like I don't blame them for just getting better technically. Like obviously they didn't need it, but what are they gonna do? Just stand pat? Like if a player wants to sign there, like what are they gonna do? Just like not sign him? So I don't blame them at all. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I don't want to sound bitter because I'm not a Nets fan. But what is LaMarcus Aldridge? Why, bro? Like I get it. You want to ring chase technically, but I feel like there's other teams out there that you would have been utilized more in, right? Like and by the way, I thought for sure he was going to sign with the Miami Heat. Jurg, you could touch upon that, but because I'm assuming he would have been slided into the 4 spot right away in the starting lineup, but he's not the same defensively. He's never been a great defensive player. I think he's going to be fine offensively, especially with James Harden. That pick and pop duo is going to be insane. Um, I don't know. I wasn't a fan of LaMarcus Aldridge's process during this. Like, all right, bro, like you really going to sign with the Nets here? Like, I mean, I get it. Like you're in the last years of like your career and you want to get that ring, but damn, bro, like you chose this route. And I mean, kind of rebounding off what Dame said, the buyout market, I think they need to place some restrictions on this because like the two commodities here were LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond, and both of them signed with the two teams that everyone expects to meet in the finals, Lakers and Nets. But there needs to be, I feel like, restrictions. I don't necessarily know. I haven't put that much thought into it, but I don't know. Maybe you guys could, as like we continue with the convo, bring up some suggestions on how like we could place restrictions on this, or at least like you have to like there has to be like a limit of just one buyout signing. Like they already got Blake Griffin. Like, so I think that would restrict LaMarcus Aldridge from going there. At the end of the day, it's whatever. I think a lot of people are overreacting a bit more than they should be because it is LaMarcus Aldridge. He's a fine scorer, but he's not over the top. The thing is just the Nets are just so OP that it just hurts to see them sign every player. Like I feel like if he went to Miami, that would have been great because Miami gets more loaded, especially with the Oladipo trade, and then there would be like a little bit more parity in the Eastern Conference, man. Weak move on LaMarcus Aldridge's part. Nets, I get it. There's no reason not to sign him or like at least go for it. And the buyout market, yeah, NBA needs to do something about it, man. I feel like player empowerment is a little bit too out of control nowadays. Like I just feel like they just run shit and Adam Silver just lets it happen. Like you guys know David Stern would not have allowed this. You guys know it for a fact. And yeah, KD, man, these rings, quote unquote rings, are just invalidated, man. Like and he's so insecure, bro. So insecure. He's like, I don't want to call it Nets fans because we need to maintain a little level of classiness in this podcast. But I think Dame kind of broke that. But yeah,
I
I
don't
hope.
care. There's no such thing as classiness when it comes to the Nets, so I don't care.
No. But this podcast, we need classiness. I know. Yeah. Well, first of all, the Nets don't even have fans technically. They're not even real
There's
fans.
3 of them.
Yeah, 3 of them. They're not even. Yeah, they're just people from Brooklyn. And so they just, I guess they just root
Yeah.
for whatever. I mean, I hope this backfires on them. I don't like this for the league. I don't like this for just. I thought we were done with super teams, man. This is what infuriates me. I thought we were done with that shit. But of course, like I cannot wait till KD retires, man. I cannot wait. Whatever. That's a little too harsh. But Jurg, you could just bring it home with this.
Quite a lot to unpack there. I do find the recent years of the buyout market and how it's been used by various teams to get players is definitely something that I think just like the general idea of it, I was a fan of, and I still kind of am a fan of. But the Nets this year are definitely going to make a lot of people raise up a question about it, and I think even the Clippers last season they acquired like 2 or 3 players via the buyout market. Well, who was it? I think it was Reggie Jackson, Joakim Noah maybe, and one more name that
They traded for Marcus
escaping.
Morris.
Right.
So I think that was it.
Maybe JaMychal Green, was he a buyout? I
No,
don't
I
know.
think he was there before the season.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but anyways, like contending teams have used the buyout market to do so. I find it very interesting to the point where it's like with this move, I'm not mad at the Nets because obviously as someone who had in 2 different points or in 2 different sports in his life, his teams were championship contenders that made moves to maintain that championship status. I'm not going to blame an organization for adding more weapons per se, but it is definitely going to be something to where a lot of people are going to argue, and we're going to get into the other big buyout signing that happened in a moment. With Aldridge going to the Nets, like I hear a lot of people criticizing Aldridge, and I can understand it. I'm not personally heartbroken from it when it comes to the Miami perspective because we just shipped out one power forward that can't play defense, so welcoming another one in that would have been nice. And Aldridge, I think he definitely would have fit at the 4 spot. Him and Bam like that. The difference between the two of them on offense, and even a pick and pop between the two of them, because Bam is a pretty dang good ball handler and playmaker. That would have been nice to see, but in terms of the Miami perspective, Chris, because you just you asked, and I'll just touch upon it very briefly here. But like at the end of the day, Miami it's just not a place where everyone can play. Like some people think they want it, and then when they really see how it's like, they realize that they're not cut out for it. Miami just demands a certain level from players. And I'm not going to talk about the competition standpoint of it, but in terms of the work ethic, like Aldridge having to do the things that Pat Riley makes the players do in practice, that Spo makes the players do in practice, he probably just didn't want to deal with that. And he decided to just go to the Nets. He's going to bring more consistent offense, especially from the 3-point line compared to Blake. Neither of them are going to bring much rebounding and interior defense. So DeAndre Jordan, he can remain on that lonely island of being the lone interior defender on that team. I pray for him when it comes to a Bucks series. But at the end of the day, it's just I don't know if anything's going to happen to the buyout market here because putting rules and restrictions on it, what do you do? How do you restrict it? Like, do you try to do maybe what Major League Baseball does, like have an exact pool of money for buyout signings, and certain players with certain term in the league, like a player that's been in the league for like these guys like 8, 9, 10 years, do they get a higher amount of that pool compared to that? Because baseball has that for international money. So could the NBA do that? It'd be a very wild idea, that something that you wouldn't think they would do, but could they do that? I don't know. Could they limit it to just one per team? I think that's too restrictive. Like, I just I don't know what they would do to quote unquote fix it, because I just don't know how many people think it's broken. And to your point, it does come down to player empowerment, and the NBA Players Association, they've been pretty good in terms of making sure the players get what they want. Like, I don't see a scenario where the buyout market comes into question this upcoming offseason or in a future offseason. I mean, if it does, like, it does, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna touch upon that. But LaMarcus Aldridge to the Nets, like, it's just another weapon for them. He's probably gonna have one playoff game at least where he scores like 20 points, and on a rare off night by Kyrie or Harden or KD himself. I'm not gonna get into the whole KD rings thing. Just I'm not the day for that. We could wait a little bit on that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I guess we could kind of transition over.
No,
Boys.
Jurg, because you brought up something that I want to talk about. Like the
Okay.
Aldridge thing,
Whoa.
him not going to Miami, like, I get it because he's like spent like the last 6 years, I think, with the Spurs.
Yeah.
And I guess the Spurs and Miami Heat organizations are kind of similar in terms of just like they need a specific type of player.
Mhm.
And that fits their work ethic. Like, you can't F around in these type of organizations. I'm so sick and tired of these lazy ass players. Like, yeah, gifted offensively. Like, there's a reason why I think they go to the Nets, because Steve Nash is like, they kind of do whatever they want on the
Right.
offensive side. Like, there's more freedom basically on that end. But goddamn, man, like, why, bro? Like, why can't, like, there's like no competition anymore, man.
You
Just
know
like,
what's funny? Allegedly, this was just I don't know if it was a rumor or someone like floated out the idea, but apparently the losing streak Miami had gone on prior to when Aldridge was bought out, like that apparently soured him on the idea of going to South Beach, despite the fact that before that they had won like 11 of 12 or whatever. Like,
I don't believe that. I
I
just think,
I mean, I kind of could, honestly. I kind of could.
but the Heat haven't been fully healthy though. I just think that's an excuse for him to just kind of go to the Nets. He's just like, "Oh, well, KD called me." Of course, KD's gonna call you. Of course, KD's gonna call you. It's just say you didn't want to like put in the work, and with the Nets, you could kind of lay back. And I get it, you're in the back end of your career, but I don't know, man. It's such a coward move to me, and just like a coward way out. I mean, this is kind of like the norm now. I know like a lot of players did this with the Warriors. Towards the end, like these like veterans, like Nick Young did it. David
Well, I
West did
think
it.
the thing is, like, those guys were more so role players. Like, I know Aldridge kind of more fits a specific role now, but like you said, like, I've now soured. Like, LaMarcus Aldridge was a guy. It's like, I don't want to say I've lost respect, because it doesn't really matter, but it's like I've kind of soured on the fact that he made this decision to go to the Nets, because like you could have gone to another playoff caliber team in the East. You really just could have.
Yeah, and it's like, obviously, like, he's not the same player he was, but he'll give you offense, right? I think he's still an effective player. And like, don't you want, like, if you're still an effective offensive player, don't you want to go to a team where you're utilized as such? Like the Nets, I don't know if they're gonna play him as the five. If you're gonna be the five, where you're just gonna be outmatched, or you come off the bench with Blake and like you just have to kind of minimize your game. I don't know. And I know that LaMarcus Aldridge, when Kawhi Leonard was there, had a difficult time trying to like share the spotlight and just try to like balance out like the offensive schemes, because I just don't think, I mean, that's why he left Portland, and then like that's what happened in San Antonio, and then he was throwing a bitch fit about it. And then when Kawhi left, it was his team. Now you're going to the Nets. I don't know. It's just it's so, he's so weird to me. Coward move. I don't want to get into it. Any final thoughts on it?
Fuck him and fuck the Nets.
Yeah, yeah, literally. Whatever, man. That segment is finally over, and we transition to lay baseball news. Ah, exciting news that occurred last night. This will be released on Friday, but yeah, this occurred Wednesday night. The New York Mets have signed Francisco Lindor to a 10-year, $341 million extension. Guys, the final puzzle piece to this World Series run has finally occurred.
Well,
Uh, uh, I mean, yeah, Dame can't laugh though because the Yankees kind of lost today. But anyway, of course, there was rumblings that there wasn't a number they would agree on. I think the Mets initially offered what, 300 million? Was it
10 for 325.
10 for 325? And then there was rumors that I think he wanted 400, and of course that.
12 for 385.
Okay, yeah, all right, close to there, and of course that would always lead to like in the middle, and that's exactly what happened. 10 years, 341 million. I think this is great for the Mets, getting maintaining one of the best shortstops in the league. Of course, they
The
remain
best.
relevant. Oh, all right, they're the best. I guess so. All right, you guys know more than I do. So you have him, you have your star. I think this is good for them, and especially with the Steve Cohen era, this is kind of like the defining move so far. And it brings excitement to the team, honestly. I just thought it was funny that it was 341 instead of 340, just to one up Tatis. So I think this is I think it's great that both parties eventually found an agreement, and I know fans are happy. I think this is good for baseball. I think it's better when both New York teams thrive. So I think this is a win for the Mets. This is a win for Lindor. He gets his money. It's a win for the fans. I don't have much to say about it other than I'll catch you on the World Series. Jurg, what do you think?
so I think ultimately this was the right and the smart move by the Mets to do this. I think at the end of the day, what organizations kind of need to understand more is that it it means something when you acquire players recently. You need to do right by them to keep up good faith in the organization, not just with that player, not just with their representation, but future players that you could be drafting, that you could be in the negotiation tables with in terms of your own or free agents. Like you need to do various little things like that. And we knew the number one thing that Lindor wanted above all else. Of course, now he's going to a team with a better chance to contend this season compared to what the situation in Cleveland is. Case in point, they lost today. They lost on opening day to Detroit. Um, they have to do right by Lindor, and people could say what they want about MLB contracts, and players are getting overpaid because the last however many years of that deal, you're not going to get the value. They're not paying for Lindor to be at this level when he's 37, 38, 39. They're paying for years 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. They're paying for him to be at his best in the 6 to 7 years. And like Dame said, as of this moment, he is the best shortstop in all of baseball, and that's probably going to continue as such. This was the right move by the organization. You need to keep your own players happy. You need to build up the idea to others that are looking at the organization like, okay, they just did right by their guy. They took care of him. If I go there, will they take care of me? Whether it's a 1-year deal or something like that, extra years at the end, like all that stuff. So I think that was the right move at the end of the day. And now that that's out the way, they don't have to worry about it anymore. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's done. It's handled. You now get to focus on future contracts that you'll need to handle and trying to fit those on the team. Which when you get the big deals out the way, which now Lindor is, DeGrom, if I'm not mistaken, is still there for a couple more years on his contract. Syndergaard might be. I forget what his deal is. I don't know if he has anything coming up.
He's a free agent at the end of the year.
Oh,
Syndergaard.
okay. So now with this, now you could focus on Syndergaard. What is his future with the team? Do you build up good? Does this build up goodwill of him? Like, okay, they could take care of me. Maybe does it make Syndergaard think like, okay, you know what, they did that? Do I take a slight pay cut in order to stay here and be this team's number 2 guy? Like various things like that. Like it matters. So great decision by the Mets to do that. Keep your franchise players happy. Like I can't stress that enough. In today's era, even though it doesn't happen as much in baseball, keep your franchise players happy. The Mets did their thing.
So yeah, so when Steve Cohen bought the Mets, like usually when new ownership comes in, like you always have to have that one big move, and their one big move was trading for Francisco Lindor, which was a out of the ballpark kind of move. That's the kind of move you need to make, and it's the right move. Um, But if they didn't re-sign him, like the move wouldn't have meant shit because Lindor gave him a deadline for extension talks opening day, and he said he was not going to talk any extension talks throughout the season. He's going to hit free agency, so they really brought it all the way to the deadline. Right before they signed, literally like an hour before they signed, it came out reports that both sides are at a stalemate. Like the Mets are moving, the Lindor isn't moving, so it was kind of looking rough. And then out of nowhere, you get notification he signed 10 years for $341 million. Like Chris mentioned, it's one over Tatis. It's kind of like the quarterback market in football. It's always trying to one up each other. But essentially, it's kind of a 11-year, $363 million deal because the extension starts after this season. So he's there for another 11 years, and total guaranteed money is $363 million, which is great for him. He's the best shortstop in baseball. It's an average of like a mid-30s per year. It's great for the Mets because you have your franchise player. Like I get it. DeGrom is arguably the best pitcher in baseball, but he doesn't have like a personality, so you can't really brand him like the way you could brand Lindor. Like he's a kind of quiet guy. He just goes around his business. But Lindor, he has that big smile that everyone talks about around baseball. He's such an outgoing kind of guy. He's always talking, smiling, chatting with other players on the field. He's just that kind of guy. He's a kind of perfect kind of guy to be a franchise player. And the Indians obviously screwed that up and didn't re-sign him. So the Mets took advantage of that. They signed him. Now he's going to be that franchise player for the next 11 years. He's obviously a great player. Like I say, he's the best shortstop in baseball. Not only on offense, he's a switch hitter, great hitter from both sides, but he's one of the best defensive shortstops in the league as well. So I have nothing but good things to say about this. Good for the Mets. Good for Lindor. It's gonna be a great marriage between them. Good for them.
How high does this make? How this move? How high
It
does this
doesn't
deal?
put them over the Yankees. Before you say it, they're
No, I
still
was
a
gonna
little
say that.
above them.
It's a legitimate question. Like, how high is the Mets ceiling after this move?
It has to be World Series or bust. Well,
Really?
not I wouldn't
Eventually,
say
yes.
I wouldn't say World Series or bust, but like they're a championship contender. I think they're one of the few teams in the league that could win a championship.
Eventually, like what this does, because now you keep Lindor there long term, it now puts a timeline of you need to take advantage with this roster with, and maybe it could be this season because if you're not able to come to terms with Syndergaard, you're losing one of the key arms in your rotation. Now, albeit the Mets have proven over the last decade or so, like they're able to get guys in that rotation to play well because they had what many had considered the best young pitching core in the game about a decade ago at this point. So they've proven they could get guys back in, but this puts a timeline now on this team. Like, all right, what are we going to need to do? Because at some point, a reset button is going to be hit, not necessarily on Lindor, but DeGrom. Like, DeGrom's not on like this 10-year deal. I think Dame.
He can opt out. He has this year. He has
Yeah,
next year, and he can opt out after next year.
exactly. So this is essentially a 2-year window to prove that you are a top tier caliber team. And when DeGrom opts out, and he will no matter what, because he wants to re up on his money,
Yeah, 100%. He's
then
on a bargain deal right now, and he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. And he sees what Bauer and Cole got. Like he's gonna opt out regardless.
Strasburg as well. Like he's gonna opt out no matter what. The key is how will this team perform? If you can finally give him run support while he pitches these like 1-run games, and the team overall can just get wins on other nights, you'll be able to convince him to stay long term. And then you have building blocks in the pitching rotation and in the hitting core to build off from there. So I think, like I said with the Tatis deal, how the Padres gave themselves 2 different windows: the 4 years of $10 million and then 10 years of $30 million a year. You gave yourself a window now. What's the next 2 years going to look like? And then when/if you get DeGrom to stay, that's when you need to be it. That is when it's championship or bust. This year and next year, it needs to be you are a playoff team and can compete with the best teams. That's what it is.
Yeah, every year I kind of overrate the Mets, so I would be wrong about this as well. So it is.
Mhm. Well, it's the difference between expectations and what will happen. Like I think expectation-wise, those should be the expectations.
Yeah, fuck them. They always screw me over. Anyways.
But I think it's good that relevancy is like a realistic thing now for them, man. Like I think they had a good
Yeah,
they had a
just
good
go
run
ahead.
last year, like towards the end ish, where they kind of 2 years ago, sorry, where they kind of got hot towards the end and they made a playoff push. But now I think this move makes people take them seriously now, so I think that's beneficial, right?
Yeah, and like Lindor had his press conference today, and the last thing he said that he signed here and he wants to make this the greatest organization in baseball. Obviously, he's not going to do that. And last thing he said is that he wants this team to be a team that players want to go to, which it's obviously has been hard to do in the past because it's the Mets, and I think it's still going to be hard to happen because they still are the Mets. But having a player like that's an ambassador for baseball, it's really good for them.
Yeah, but unfortunately the Mets couldn't play because circumstances via the Nationals. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, GG Mets, unanimous decision that this is a pro Mets day for everyone, all fans alike, actually. But yeah, that concludes our baseball news, and now we move over to the NFL news, the main event, the Hell in a Cell. Jurgen, what's up?
Yep.
Talk to me. What happened during Zach Wilson's pro day?
Ain't no one give a damn about Zach Wilson pro day.
I gave a damn.
Last week, bombshells got dropped on us. On a wild Friday that saw two trades happen with the NFL draft within like just minutes of each other, like as we were all reacting to the first, the second happen. The San Francisco 49ers traded up to the number 3 overall pick, sending the Miami Dolphins the number 12 overall pick in this year's draft, a first and a third round pick in 2022, and then another first round pick in the year 2023. As we were all in taking that move, wondering what was going to happen, now beginning to wonder why the San Francisco 49ers did that. Miami was not done wheeling and dealing. They then traded up from the number 12 overall pick back up to number 6 with the Philadelphia Eagles. And in that, the Eagles sent Miami that 6th pick and a 5th round pick in exchange for the number 12 pick, a 4th round pick, which I believe is in this year's draft, and the 2022 first rounder that San Fran sent their way, if I'm not mistaken. So 2 bombshell moves by the Miami Dolphins were done last Friday, and it definitely shook up Twitter for, I'd say, the next good 24 hours or so.
Yeah, just going off each team, I think it was a win-win-win for all these teams, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners clearly with Jimmy G were not winning a Super Bowl. And do I think they're gonna win a Super Bowl with a rookie QB? No, I do not. But going forward, like eventually after he develops, yes, I do think they could definitely win a Super Bowl. But so they had to make a move because all these this is an extremely talented quarterback class. So these quarterbacks are going to go really fast in this draft. So standing at 12, we're not going to get one of them. So they had to move up. They had to give up a lot, but that's what you got to do when you move from 12 to 3. Give up 3 first and a third. Like it's just the price you got to pay. But if it works out in the end, you get your quarterback and he brings you to the Super Bowl and wins it. Like you're not going to care about these extra picks you had to give up. So for the Niners, it's an absolute win because they're a contending team and they needed a quarterback. The Dolphins moving all the way to 12 and then back to 6. So they basically moved back 3 spots and they gained the first round pick and the third round pick, which is a great move for them because they're still going to get impact players. So quarterback's probably going to go 1, 2, 3 and arguably maybe 4. So then you have the Bengals and the Dolphins at 5, 6. So whether you want Penei Sewell for your offensive line or you want Jamar Chase for your wide receiver, one of them is going to be there for you, whoever the Bengals don't pick. So you move back and you got an extra first and extra third, and you still can get one of the impact players because, to be honest, you weren't going to take a QB anyway at 3. So moving back and getting those extra picks and still getting impact players really good for them. For Philadelphia, I really liked it because supposedly they only wanted to move up if it was for Zach Wilson, but they said he wasn't going to be there at 3 for them. So clearly they were looking to draft a QB with the 6th overall pick or move up with it. So they weren't really looking at Jamar Chase, who I think they should have probably looked at. So moving all the way back to 12, they picked up an extra first-round pick. So now if you really look at it, at 12, they could a wide receiver is probably still going to be there for them, whether it's Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, if you look at the way the draft board is going to go.
Yep.
So you could pick up one of them, and then next year they can have 3 most likely they're going to have 3 first-round picks. They're going to have their own.
Whew.
They're going to have Miami's first-round pick that they got from moving back. And if Carson Wentz, if the Colts make the playoffs or Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps, they'll have the Colts first-round pick as well. So moving all the way back to 12, now you set yourself up next year to have 3 first-round picks. What this tells me about the Eagles is that they want to give Jalen Hurts a chance. So they're basically probably going to get him a weapon as they should with the 12th overall pick. So you're going to give him that number 1 option. You're going to go into this year with Jalen Hurts as your 1, see what he's got, and then if he is your guy next year, you you have 3 first-round picks to surround them with even more weapons or give them an offensive line, or you have ammo to move up to get your next QB if Jalen Hurts doesn't work out and you want to move on. So overall, for all these teams, I think it's a great deal for all of them.
Chris, if I may, before you ask the follow-ups, because I think the bigger detail required will obviously be with the Niners and the Dolphins. I just want to say on the Eagles end of things real quick, what Dame said is accurate, and I like the fact that they're going to give Jalen Hurts a grace year to see if he can actually do something with the team. I do not like the idea of a team giving up on a rookie quarterback if it doesn't make sense. When the Cardinals did it with Josh Rosen, they did it because Kingsbury coming in, it was a better scheme fit with Kyler Murray, et cetera, like that. When the team does that, it makes sense. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, there was no reason to consider looking at a new starter when you did not do him any favors with picking him last year and barely playing him, and now giving him this full year to bounce back, because now teams have tape on him. Year 2 is going to be more indicative of what kind of player he is, because the first 5 or 6 games, teams are going to respond to how he played from last year, and then the last 10, 11 games are going to be Hurts bouncing back and taking what the defense is giving to him and adjusting and growing. And that's what young quarterbacks need. Shade at certain organizations. You need to give them time. So I like the fact that Hurts is going to get a full year with this team to try to make it work. And like Dame said, at the 12th overall pick, they could go in a number of different directions. Maybe should go receiver because Hurts needs help weapons-wise, because I think we could both agree, Dame, Zach Ertz is probably going to be gone because he just does not want to be there anymore. So we're going to see what happens there. But I like the fact that the Eagles, at least for a year, are committing to the young quarterback they have and not just throwing him away for no reason. So to you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys pretty much answered the Eagles side of things, and well, it's kind of difficult here to ask follow-up questions because we don't want to spoil our predictions. We don't want to spoil our mock draft decisions that we're gonna have going forward. But I want to talk about the Niners real quick. Obviously, there's so much, I guess, chatter about what they may do with the third pick. Do you guys see them? I mean, I think the general consensus here. I think it was said that we're not moving on from Jimmy G, but let's be honest. Like the all signs point to them moving on from Jimmy G because, like Dame says,
Yeah.
they're a good team with. I think they're a good team with Jimmy G. Obviously, when they stay healthy, but I think like any other quarterback against the Chiefs, if they had any other quarterback, I feel like that was a little bit above average. I think they would have won that Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing. Their ceiling is good. But you
yes,
can't be
yes,
good and win a Super Bowl. You got to be great.
yeah, and I think, but I don't know, man. Like if replace Jimmy G with a Justin Fields or
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, and I know Trey Lance is the unknown, but I think his ceiling is so high. I don't necessarily know if you go downhill. I feel like you're just there's this the ceiling is higher, but I also think you're gonna get more results from those rookie quarterbacks. Maybe it's just me speaking from like an inexperienced NFL viewer, but yeah, tell me what you guys think about that. Like, do you really think that? I mean, I feel like there would be a major difference if you replace a Jimmy G with Justin Fields or Trey Lance. I don't want to talk about Mac Jones's hype because I think that thing is just blown out of proportion. But also, do you guys think the Mac Jones hype is real as well?
It shouldn't be. Like, just real
I
quick
know, yeah, but
before I throw it to Dame, obviously trading up to 3, you don't trade up this high for a receiver unless it's a Calvin Johnson or a Randy Moss. You don't trade up this high for. I love Penei Sewell. I think he's the guy, but they don't need left tackle because they re-signed Trent Williams. Ultimately, you traded up this high to get your next quarterback. And now the question, like you said, like what could happen? Like I think the thing is Dame. This is sort of my mindset, depending on who they pick. It's a realistic thing where either they're just waiting to trade Jimmy G for a team that's going to need him, or they're actually going to give Jimmy G the first 4 to 5 games the next season before letting the rookie quarterback take over for whatever reasoning happens. I think that's ultimately going to be the case. Like them saying they're not moving on from Jimmy G, as we've talked about several times with a certain New York team that should have moved on from their quarterback already. Like you need to keep up your quarterback's value. You need to strike when the iron is hot. And you need to keep propping up Jimmy G to the point where if another team feels like they have a dire need at quarterback and need a stopgap or whatever, they would maybe pay, a second round pick back to you in order to get Jimmy G, or like a second and a fifth, which would be right considering what you had to give up. Give yourself more depth picks since you're missing out on the first rounders the next few years. Like that's what you need to do. Ultimately, to your point, Chris, like the rookie quarterback is going to have a learning curve like every rookie does, and especially
Mm-hmm.
depending on who they pick. Because I'm with you, and I don't know, I'm sure Dame agrees. Like I'm not all high on Mac Jones at all. I think he's going to end up being the Daniel Jones of this draft if he gets picked in the first round, which is a guy that was picked way too high for where he should have been. Ultimately, between Fields or Lance, who are you more confident in? That's up to Shanahan and Lynch. But my thing is that the true value of the rookie quarterback will be the 4 years where that cap hit is low to where you can build up the rest of the team, because you, with other high contracts, they had to move on from DeForest Buckner because we saw what contract he got from the Colts as soon as they traded for him. They paid Eric Armstead, who you saw with nobody around him last year because that defensive line kept getting hurt. He was essentially useless. Like he got paid like a top tier pass rusher, or your second best pass rusher when he's not. Nick Bosa, while we still think of him for what he did his rookie year, he's now going into his third season. His contract's coming up in 2 years. Granted, they got the 5th-year option, but his contract's coming up very quick. D Ford, the linebacking core with Greenlaw, and the talent that they have there. They need to fix the cornerback. Like with a rookie quarterback, you can now invest in the other positions, and I think that for San Fran is the ultimate value, because Jimmy G's contract didn't become that, overpriced real quick. But you know what's even better than a quarterback making just $22 million a year? A quarterback that's only making $7 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that $15 million makes up a hell of a lot of difference, especially for this upcoming season in particular, and maybe even next, if the salary cap doesn't take the spike that a lot of us are predicting. Because some people inside the NFL think a lot of people are overblowing the spike that could go for the salary cap next season because it's only 1 year since this. But that a conversation for another time. But ultimately, with the rookie quarterback, it's all about the value, and that's where San Fran wins. They're getting more value at the position with who they're drafting, no matter who it ends up being.
And Jurg, like a quarterback that's making $7 million, but that would be arguably way better than Jimmy G
That
too.
has a higher ceiling. Yeah, that has a higher ceiling and is going to be at that cap hit, relatively speaking, for the next 4 years. Like, that's extremely That's why, not at the quarterback position, but that's why the Patriots were good for as long as they were. They got value at every single position. They didn't let themselves overpay a player. Jamie Collins, get out of here. Chandler Jones, okay, we don't need you anymore. Like, we're not going to overpay. And at this point, while I don't think I don't want to call him overpaid for what they're about to do. Jimmy G is overvalued now for the contract you're giving him, and the rookie quarterback just is not going to be, no matter what metric you look at.
Dame, you have any concluding thoughts, or you want to rebound off something?
Yeah. Going on the Jimmy G thing. They're saying they're gonna keep. I believe that they're gonna keep him. To be honest, I think they're gonna go with the Kansas City model where they drafted Mahomes and had him sit a year behind Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's kind of going to be similar to that. I'm not saying they're going to draft the next Mahomes because they're not, but I think Jimmy G is good enough for them to stay relevant. And whether it's an in-season change or an end of the season change, I think that's the route they're going to take. I'm not going to say who I think they're going to take with their draft pick. I'll keep that a secret for now. But I think they'll draft whoever it is. They'll have him sit a year to help him gain some experience and learn their system. Because although it is an easy quarterback system, it's better that you like kind of learn it. And as a rookie QB, it'll be different than one day what each of those quarterbacks ran in college. So I think it'll be beneficial for that quarterback that they draft and the Niners as well to just have him sit a year, sit behind Jimmy G. And Jimmy G has came out and said that he's open for competition. So unless this rookie quarterback comes in training camp and absolutely blows the top off, I think Jimmy G will be a week 1 starter and mostly for most of the season, if not the whole season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh, you know, just kind of final points, and not necessarily about San Fran here, but it kind of ties in with them. Does this not essentially give us the idea of, guys, because you guys are, especially Dame, he's the Jets fan here. Like, does this
I'm a
not
Jets fan
essentially?
too, Jurg.
Okay, I want to
Yeah.
make sure. I want to make sure. Does this not essentially give you guys the idea of who the Jets are going to take? Like, at this point, because of all the rumors we were hearing about, because San Fran was also trying to trade up and the Eagles were trying to trade up, does this not essentially like spoil, like, okay, the Jets are going quarterback here?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to spoil who I think they'll take,
Right.
but I think it's because I think wasn't there reports that they were trying to trade with the Jets for the 2 pick,
Yeah.
or at least some team. I don't know if it was the Niners specifically, but
One of, if not both, maybe even both of them reached out to the
They
Jets
have
for number
ties
2.
to each other. Robert Saleh came from the Niners, like the
Yeah.
yeah,
offensive
yeah, yeah,
coordinator for
yeah,
the
okay,
Niners, so they
okay.
definitely have ties. So they obviously have an idea of what the Jets are thinking.
I think they're definitely going QB. I know that I don't know what's gonna happen with Darnold, but I think there's a reason why no one jumped up yet before. Like obviously
Right.
it's up in the air in terms of who they're gonna pick, but I think they're just gonna take QB. Like I'm 98% sure they're taking a QB. At this point I'll be shocked if they don't take a QB. Dame, what do you think?
Until Sam Darnold is traded, I don't think they're taking QB. So
So
until I'm
what they're
proven
gonna go
wrong,
Sewell?
I think so. Until he's off the roster, I'm gonna keep believing that because they're not gonna keep two of them. So
Right, but all
until
the signs that have occurred so far, you don't think that
I
it's
understand, but then why do they still have Sam Darnold on the team? Day by day, his value diminishes. So I don't get it.
not
I don't
really,
know.
bro? I mean, what his value is now, I think it's not going to change. But I don't know. Maybe there's a package the Jets haven't, thought has been sexy enough. What do you think about this whole thing, Jurg? You play mediator right now.
I see it on both points to where I understand from Dame's perspective of if you haven't traded Darnold at this point, why would you do that? Because like I honestly never bought into the idea they were going to get a second round pick back for him, but at this point they're definitely not getting a second round pick. If they get a third round pick back for Darnold, I think that's going to be a considered W. But at the same time, like Chris has the point to here. Think of what the Niners had to do to go from in terms of 12-3 or what the Eagles could have offered you. Like in terms of what those deals ended up looking like, which would have been the first you would have gotten that first rounder for this year and then at least 2 extra firsts, and from 12-2 that third rounder you maybe could have even gotten an extra third or a fourth, like and with the Eagles maybe a second if you could have like however you would have done it, you would have gotten 4 to 5 picks from that. I don't think you stay in that draft pick for a left tackle. Again, I love Penei Sewell, but I don't think you stay in that pick slot
Yeah.
for anything other than a quarterback. And that goes to the fact that at the end of the day, look at the history of the league. Quarterbacks are, for better or for worse, they're going to be the position that's overvalued in the draft that teams are always going to take the risk on. Like you don't see teams taking risks out here trading 4 or 5 first round picks for running backs or defensive ends or receivers. That only happens for one position on the field. So in my mind, I see it from both of your points, honestly, to where why is Sam Darnold still on the team if you're going quarterback? But why would you not have traded out of number 2? Because if Joe Douglas being such a draft centric guy, if
Guru, yeah.
if they weren't going to go quarterback, wouldn't they have made that deal? Like, I think that's the sticking point for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
That ultimately that's what it is. Like, you don't stay in number 2 for anyone aside from a quarterback, and whether it be our boy from BYU, our boy from OSU, or a guy that was playing in the state of North Dakota. Like, no matter who it's for, I'm starting to think it's for one of those guys.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head right there. I know a lot of people were saying like, yo, why did the Jets make that San Francisco trade? And it's just like I guess it's all but confirmed now at this point. I just think they still have some stuff to figure out, of course, and I know Darnold's at the top of that like decision making in terms of just like what can we do with him. And there's also they have a bunch of shit to figure out, and I know the defense is locked and loaded, especially for moves this offseason, but yeah, I don't know. I just think there's a bunch of stuff they need to figure out. And I think in terms of trying to figure that stuff out, a Darnold trade would, accelerate that process, because like if you get a third round pick, okay, we could address this need. If we get a second round pick, okay, we could address this need, and we could use the Seattle pick without worrying about what we'll get with a second round pick just in case someone's gone, something like that. So I just think it's a huge domino effect. But I see Damien's point,
Yeah.
especially as like a Jets pessimist, because coming off the disappointment of Joe Douglas's aggression this offseason, I kind of see where he's at. But yeah,
I just want to make one thing clear. I hate that the Niners are right behind us now because whoever goes to the Niners, no matter which QB it is, they're going to be successful because it's a good QB. No matter what, whoever goes there, whether it's Mac Jones, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance, either one of them is going to be successful in the Niners. And whoever the Jets get, because of the situation he's going to be put in, is going to look worse, and the Jets are going to get shit on because that's what's that's what always happens. So I just want to put that out there because that is what's gonna happen, no matter what, no matter how good our pick is.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, and then
So
we
I
have
hate that the Niners are behind us because
and
they're
then
just they're quarterback such a quarterback friendly system that no matter what, their quarterback won.
And a Super Bowl ready team. Like that team was in the
Yeah.
Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they didn't return to the playoffs last year because of injury. Because essentially the entire starting defense and half that offensive lineup was in the emergency room, and hell, even the second stringers ended up taking a trip to the emergency room. Like, come on now.
Yeah, and then we'll have like another Sam Darnold situation on our hands, questioning the value of our quarterback. But
Yep.
we don't want to talk about that. Hopefully, the draft is right around the corner, so hopefully shit gets resolved soon.
So is our
Especially
mock draft.
yes, that is true. What's today? The first. Okay, so, and
3
the
weeks.
draft is April
3
30th.
weeks. That's when I get my second vaccine shot.
So wait, April 30th is the draft.
Yes. No.
The
29.
first round, yes. The
Okay.
first round,
Wait.
29th, yeah.
Okay,
Or
so we actually 4
around
weeks
there.
anyway. But yeah, hopefully, I'm pretty sure moves will be made. But for the sake of content for the show, hopefully shit happens soon. But that's it for this week, guys. Phenomenal stuff as always. What a diverse news outlet. We had hockey news, we had football news, we had basketball news, we had freaking baseball
We hit
news.
the
Baseball.
big four. We hit the big four.
What are we missing? No WrestleMania predictions, Jurg? Haha. Anyway, yeah,
Haha.
guys, that's enough, Dame. That'll be it for this week. We appreciate all, probably 4 of you listeners listening to our episodes. When we do our mock draft episode, it'll be a little different structure wise. I think we'll be more visual heavy that episode, that week in particular. So watch out for that. We'll update you as soon as we can. We just want to make sure that the order is good first. And there's possibilities that there'll be extra guests. So who knows? You got to tune in. But yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in, for listening. Peace.
Take care.
Peace.